Have you ever wanted to learn how to backpack but felt like you couldn't because you just didn't know where to begin? We're going to fix that right now. Have you ever wanted to start backpacking but you felt like you couldn't because you didn't know where to begin? Well, I'm here to tell you that it's not that hard, and we're going to walk through the basics of beginning backpacking for people later in life, or actually anybody of any age who's interested in starting backpacking but doesn't know where to start. So these first 5 tips are things that I think are good to keep in mind for anybody who decides they want to start backpacking. And number 1 is that you really should start slow. Now, if you've been a day hiker for a long time and you're used to adventuring or rock climbing or things like that, you probably have a higher level of fitness than somebody who's going from the couch to their first backpacking trip. So keep that in mind. But if you start slow, no matter what you're doing, it gives you time to learn and to develop experience before you, say, tackle the Appalachian Trail or the CDT or some other epic hike. It's also a good idea to go with a more experienced backpacker when you tackle your first trip. And that could be a friend. If you know somebody who enjoys backpacking, they might be willing to go along with you on a starter trip. Or you could join a hiking group or even look for people on Facebook. I reached out to people from a hiking group on Facebook to see who was in my local area when I first started backpacking and training. And that's how I met 3 wonderful women and I did a whole bunch of training hikes with them. And that was helpful preparing me for the AT. If you're uncertain of what to do and you need a confidence boost as you start backpacking, going with somebody who has been out at least a few times can help you learn a lot. It's amazing how many tips and tricks you can pick up from experienced backpackers and learn kind of what works for them, what doesn't. They can really help you progress more quickly than if you were to say, I'm going to tackle backpacking and I'm going to do this all on my own. Backpacking is something where you can really learn a lot from other people. My 3rd tip is just to not let the weather or the environment overwhelm you. I think a lot of people plan backpacking trips and then they look at the weather forecast and like, oh, dang, it's going to rain. I can't go this weekend. That's a really easy excuse, especially if you've never been backpacking before. But honestly, weather is weather. It's good and bad. And unless there are extremes that make you unsafe, then there's nothing wrong with going out and getting a little bit wet while you're hiking. If you're developing a long-term backpacking career, a hobby that you want to pursue for years to come, there will be times when you will get rained on, you will be snowed on, you will find that it's dry and hot. And all of those things are going to happen. So don't let that deter you from your first trip. And along the same lines, don't let the thought of wildlife encounters get to you either. Say you're going out into bear country where there are black bears. Learn what to do when you encounter a bear. Learn what to do when you encounter a cow, because sometimes that happens, or any kind of wildlife. Just do some research on the area where you're thinking about hiking. Find out what to anticipate and prepare yourself that way. But don't let that be the reason that you don't get started in backpacking. Now, the 4th tip is that you should remember to be kind to yourself. I know a lot of people are perfectionists, myself included, and so it's easy to be really hard on yourself if you aren't doing things just right. But honestly, with backpacking, there is no just right. There's what's right for you, and that's okay. Understand that you're going to make mistakes as you start learning. Understand that not everything's going to work out, the gear's going to break. All those kind of things are going to happen. You're going to make mistakes. So they actually end up turning into really good stories a lot of times when you are able to sit down further down the line in your backpacking career and be like, you know what happened my first backpacking trip, or when I went to this place and I forgot something really important, whatever it is. This make great stories, not only as learning experiences, but fun stories that you can share with other people. Accepting from the very beginning that you should be kind to yourself and forgiving when things don't go well is going to make a lot of difference in terms of how much you enjoy getting out there and backpacking. And that is the 5th tip, and that is to make sure that you have fun while you're out there. There is not the whole point. We're doing this not only just for fitness or to see things, but we want to have fun. We want to make memories. If you're too hard on yourself and too focused on having everything just right, then you're going to forget that you're out there for fun. And I want you to remember that that's one of the most important reasons to go backpacking in the first place. Have a great time and enjoy every moment as much as you possibly can. So let's get into the good stuff now. Gear is one of the things that beginning backpackers really tend to obsess about, and experienced backpackers too, honestly. But to get started in backpacking, you do not need to go out and spend a ton of money on a whole new backpacking kit. You can borrow gear, you can rent gear so that you can get started without investing much money at all. You will need a basic kit, so you're going to need some kind of shelter, so a tent, a tarp, a hammock, whatever works for you. You're going to need a sleep system, so you want a sleeping bag or a quilt and a sleeping pad. You may also want a sleeping bag liner for extra comfort, but that's entirely up to you. You will need a cook system, so you need a stove, you'll need a lighter, you'll need a pot, you'll need a spoon. You will probably want trekking poles, and of course you'll want a backpack. And I'd say if you can find a backpack, either a used backpack or borrow one from a friend, That's a good way to just get out there for your first overnight. So instead of spending $200, $300, $400 on a backpack, go ahead and borrow one. See if you even like being outside. See if you like camping before you invest in one of your own. And then when you're ready, you can actually go to the store and get fitted for a pack. Look at all the different pack options, try some of them out, and then decide which you want to invest your money in. You will also need hiking clothing, and that doesn't mean that you have to go out and buy special hiking clothing. If you've got some fitness wear, nice shorts or leggings that are quick dry, some kind of lightweight pants that aren't jeans, then that's good. You don't really want to wear cotton because that absorbs water and doesn't dry very quickly, so that's not the best. But anything that's either wool or synthetic can be suitable for hiking clothes if they're comfortable for you. This is just a regular old workout shirt, and I've used it for backpacking. It's fine. Birds have things to say. When you're choosing your gear and your clothing, just remember that you do not need to bring too much. You don't necessarily need to bring a chair. You don't need a lot of different things that are going to be, quote, comfort items. You don't have to have a pillow. I mean, I carry a pillow, but you don't have to carry one. You could stuff your clothes in a stuff sack and use that as a pillow. So there are different things that you can do to kind of lighten your load. I do have a few videos on how to backpack more lightly, so you could check those out if you're curious. But we will do a complete beginning backpacking gear checklist for you, and that'll be a separate video to go into a deep dive of gear. But those are the basic things you need to get started with backpacking. And just like not carrying too much gear, people tend to carry too much clothing as well. If you're going for a 2 or 3 night trip, then you could easily just wear the same clothes every day that you're hiking. I recommend carrying a second set of clothes that you can keep dry, so you have something to sleep in and something to change into if you should happen to get wet, if you get caught in an unexpected thunderstorm. I consider that a safety issue, and I know a lot of hardcore backpackers don't carry sleep clothes, but for me, it's very important, and I would definitely suggest it for a beginning backpacker just to give you that extra comfort that if you get soaking wet or if you get sweaty and you just are really gross, that when you get into your tent at night that you can put on something clean and dry and have a good night's rest so you're ready to go the next day. Even if there's no rain in the forecast, you will want to pack some rain gear, whether that's a lightweight rain jacket and rain pants if you have that, or even an inexpensive set of frog togs, which are one of the premier rain gear options for thru hikers. So they're lightweight, they're inexpensive, and they do their job. Now, as far as footwear, you don't have to go out and invest in a good pair of heavy hiking boots. In fact, most long-distance hikers don't wear heavy hiking boots. You probably want a pair of trail runners or low-cut hiking shoes if you need more support. Look for something that's got a good structure to the shoe. It's got nice arch support and it fits you well so that you don't get blisters. But if you don't even have the money to invest in hiking shoes up front, look in your closet and see if you've got a good pair of running shoes or walking shoes that have a nice tread on them. You definitely want something that's got some grip to it, because it's easy to find places on the trail where either the trail is slippery because it's got lots of little gravel or sand on it, or where you're just stepping over rocks that are wet and slippery. So make sure you've got good grip on the shoes, whatever you wear. But again, you don't have to invest in those expensive shoes until you're ready if you've got something that's suitable that you can start out with. As far as what to eat on the trail, that's another area where it's easy to pack too much food. And I do tend to overpack food because I like to have an extra ration or two if there should be an emergency and I end up being out longer than I plan. But for a basic overnight or two, then you're just going to need breakfast, dinner, lunch, and some snacks. For dinner, you could take a prepackaged backpacking meal that you just need to boil some water and rehydrate that way. That makes cooking really simple. You can carry instant oatmeal or bars for breakfast. Some people like to take a muffin or a honey bun, and that's just fine. You can choose more healthy options, or you can go for the sugar if you think your body's going to need the sugar. But do balance that and make sure that you're getting nutrients, especially if you're out for more than a couple of nights, because your body is going to need that fuel to keep you hiking well. You may discover as you go out there and start backpacking that with the extra weight on your back and the hiking that you're doing, that you're so tired that you're not even very hungry. That is not uncommon, so don't worry about that. But do have snacks that you can eat that are healthy. Things like nuts are great to just nibble on. You can take prepackaged cheese is also another great thing that's nutritious. Dried fruit, those kinds of things are good, healthy snacks. I do carry candy as well. I don't carry chocolate, obviously, because it melts, but Starbursts are great for me. When I'm getting ready to go up a hill, I might pop a Starburst or two just to get a little boost of energy as I do that big climb. But balance that out with things that are nutritious. For hygiene, you want to follow leave no trace principles, which means that you do need to be able to dig a cat hole or pack out your TP if that's appropriate for the area that you're in. You'll want some kind of a lightweight trowel to do that. You want to pack some toilet paper. Or you could use something like a bidet, or there's female urination devices, which are FUD is what the acronym is, that allow you to pee standing up, or you can get a Kula cloth, which is a little rag that you can attach on your backpack that's got one side that stays dry and the other side has got some silver microbes that help it to stay sanitary. So there's different options for you in terms of peeing and pooping in the woods. I don't plan a whole video on that, but if you feel like you need it, let me know in the comments down below. But anyway, you want to have those hygiene things with you. I like to carry some dry wipes and use those in the evening. I can wet them with some of my water and just kind of take a little bird bath, if you will, so that I'm cleaner before I go to bed, which makes me feel better and also keeps my quilt, my sleep system, a little bit cleaner. You don't have to carry a big heavy pack of baby wipes. You could, if it's just a couple days, you could put 1 or 2 of them in a plastic bag, carry them that way, or take a dry wipe and just wet it down. Once you've decided where to hike, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, we're going to want some navigation so that you know where you're going. You should get a map for the area that you're hiking in. Don't rely just on your phone, although there's great apps for navigating on your phone. Especially for a beginning backpacker, you'll want a map not only of the trail that you're doing, but any ancillary trails in case you need to get out in emergency or see where there's a road crossing if you need to have somebody come and rescue you for any reason. And speaking of safety, it's a good idea to have a basic first aid kit. You do not need one of these big old honking first aid kits that's got everything in it. Take a few Band-Aids, take some lamb's wool or some Leukotape if you get hot spots, maybe a little Neosporin in case you get a scratch. Just a basic first aid kit will suit you well, because unless you're having a drastic emergency, whether it's a rolled ankle or a scrape or something like that, you only need to take care of that until you can get back off the trail and get professional medical help. So just take kind of the minimum of stuff that makes you feel comfortable without overpacking, because the more weight you have on your pack from overpacking in any of these categories is going to make you less comfortable, and you're going to have less fun than you would if you were packing a little bit lighter. If you want some tips on how to pack lighter, I've got some videos on that you can see up there. And I will do a beginner backpacking video that covers all the gear and how to have a good solid kit without having too much in it. And that will be in an upcoming video. A couple of other items that you will want for safety are a whistle, because a whistle carries a lot further than your voice if you are screaming for help. A whistle is a great safety item to have, and also a compass, so that if you are looking at that map trying to get out because either you've lost your phone or your phone has died, then you want to be able to orient yourself so that you can head in the right direction and get out safely. If you're enjoying this video, I hope that you will take a moment to hit that subscribe button down below. It's a great way to let YouTube know that my videos are worth watching and help YouTube put them in front of other people like you who would like to learn more about backpacking. Now, what about where to go on your first backpacking trip or some of your early backpacking trips? A lot of people tend to want to go to some epic trail as like, oh, I went and hiked Denali on my first trip. No, bad idea. I would suggest going someplace close to home so that you can get home easily if you are spooked or unhappy or whatever reason. And also find a place that's got relatively easy terrain. State parks are great for that. And a lot of state parks have what they call walk-in tent sites. Some of those is just a few hundred feet, and you could just go to one of those and spend an afternoon, set up your camp, get used to your gear and that sort of thing if you want. Or if you want to make that your first backpacking overnight, find one that's got a trail that's a mile or 2, or maybe 3 or 4 miles where you can go in and you can camp and do your backpacking overnight, and then you can get out safely the next day. And you also are close enough to your parking area that if you, for some reason in the middle of the night, feel like I can't do this, I've got to go, you don't have to hike that far to get out. But I think if you do that a couple times, you're going to develop a lot more confidence in terms of being out there overnight, listening to the creatures in the woods and the noises and all of that kind of thing. And they'll help you feel more comfortable camping on your longer trips. Another thing I like about backpacking in a state park is that the facilities are usually pretty good, and there are rangers that you can talk to. So what I like to do is when I actually get to the state park and I'm checking in, I ask them about trail conditions. I ask them if there's anything that I need to be concerned about, whether that's wildlife or something else. And I kind of get the lowdown, and then also they know that I'm out there. And so if there's any issue, they've already connected with me, and I feel a little bit safer that way. There are a couple places if you are in Georgia that are great for shakedown hikes or beginning backpacking hikes. And one is the Pine Mountain Trail in the central Georgia area. And then also Black Rock Mountain State Park, which is up in the upper kind of northeast corner. I did a shakedown there overnight, and it was great because it was only a few miles to hike to my campsite. And even though it was wet and raining, it was a good trail that gave me the experience of a much longer trail. But I was able to just go in, do my hiking, camp for the night, set everything up, and make sure that all my gear was working as I was getting ready for a longer trip, and then head on back out in the morning. So state parks in local areas can be excellent for those first few backpacking trips just to get you more comfortable. If you've got a buddy and you're hiking together, then maybe you want to try something that's a little bit more ambitious. Even if you've got just a partner and you want to go out and kind of test things out for the night, see if you even like being in the woods. If you're not a camper, then that's a really good way to sort of get started and just take the baby steps that are going to lead you to much more adventurous backpacking career over the years. Those are all my initial tips. I will be doing more in-depth videos like one on a beginner backpacking gear checklist and choosing your first hike and things like that. So stay tuned for those over the next few weeks. And then pretty soon I'll be out on the Pinhoti Trail doing a thru hike with my friend Gunslinger. And if you want to watch that, make sure that you subscribe to get notified about new videos as they come out.